In this tutorial, we'll be going over how to make an enemy shoot, and in this case, it's going to be this little guy you see over here. Well, the first step, I'd recommend you watch my first enemy video where we go over how to make a basic enemy, because I will not be going over that. Otherwise, the video will be way too long. So I recommend you check that out. I'll probably have it in the description, or I'll add a card at the top right. Anyways, so you want to set up the enemy like a normal basic enemy in the first video. So you want to have all the components, navigation agent, enemy manager, and that's actually it. You also want a timer in your enemy, and the other things you need are, excluding the GPU particles and the animation player, you're gonna need everything else, and excluding this because this is just like the mesh. So other than these three highlighted, you're gonna need everything, so I recommend you just add the nodes now, and I'll go over exactly what to do with them later. Alright, so first things first is you want a normal node 3D. I called it beam pivot, and it's gonna hold the raycast, which has a target position of -100, and if you want you can change the debug shape to whatever you want. And then we're gonna have another node 3D, and you want its position to be the same as the beam, which is just a mesh, right? And I forgot to explain before, but this tutorial, it'll show you how to make like an enemy shoot a beam at the player, and this could be modified into a bullet. I'll show you exactly how to do that later. Okay, but yeah, so the beam doesn't need to be that long. I'll have the project, like a GitHub link, in the description, most likely. And you can see it's just like a cylinder. Let me turn on the visibility. It's just a cylinder. Yeah, it's rotating 90 degrees. That's all it is. Okay, so it's gonna take a while to save the scene because I have a really costly scene open. Yeah, but while it's saving, we can go over what everything does. So the scalar it's gonna basically lengthen the beam. So when we fire the beam, it's gonna allow the beam to cast to the position where the raycast hits. And the beam pivot is basically, we use the look at method on it, so the beam will follow the player. Anyways, let's go into the script, and we're going to start with the root node first. So just a reminder, make sure you have enemy as a group. You put the enemy group, and you want to add a script, of course. And again, anything with the animation player you don't need. Okay, so first step is, if you haven't already, you want to add these lines. It's the same from the beginning of the starting tutorial on making an enemy. And then you want to add a function process, and we declare a variable at the top, right? And if firing is equal to false, then we'll return. And if we are firing, then we want to do the rest of this. So I'm going to zoom out a little so you can see everything at once. Okay, so basically over here, actually let's zoom in. I'll just scroll. Okay, so over here we're checking if the raycast is colliding with anything. And I forgot to mention, also you want to make sure the collision mask is set to the layer with your player and the world. so that the beam can properly hit something. And you'll see what I mean later. But so if it is colliding, then we're gonna set distance equal to our scalar node, right? Or you could do beam, it doesn't matter, scalar or beam, dot global transform dot origin dot distance to the collision point. So we're basically getting the distance between our beam and the collision point, so where the ray cast is hitting. And then we want to scale the scalar on the z-axis, and it'll be set to distance divided by 2 because we only want it one direction. Okay, and then over here we're checking if our collider is the player, and if it is, and we are firing, actually you don't really need that, but yeah, it doesn't hurt to have it, I guess. Yeah, then we check, no, then we update our player's health, and that's pretty simple. You just yeah, that's all it is. Just update health amount, just subtract the health. Alright, and then if we're not firing, if we're not colliding, then we're just gonna set our scale.c equal to target position.c. So theoretically it should be -100. Alright, then we have our function on attack, and we're gonna set firing equal to true. We're gonna turn on our visibility for our beam and raycast, all that stuff, and then we're gonna start a timer for 3 seconds. So what that does is it basically tells us when the beam is done firing, and what it is, well, we use await timer.timeout to check that, and then firing would be set to false. And if you're confused with what these $ things are, it's just like another way to reference nodes in an easier way, but doing it not the best and cleaner way to do it. Yeah, so then we turn off the beam and we turn off firing because we don't want this running if we're actually not shooting a beam, because that would be quite costly on performance if you have multiple of these. And then we're gonna start another timer, and it's gonna be for the attack speed, and we're gonna set enemy manager.canAttack equal to true. So basically this will be how long it takes for the enemy to fire the beam once again. So just quickly, I'll go over exactly what I mean. So when this is called, the beam will be shot for 3 seconds, right? And then it'll be turned off after those 3 seconds, and then a cooldown will start, and once that cooldown is done, we can fire our beam again. Okay, so let's go in enemy manager, and this is the last part of the script, or the changes, I guess. So the only thing I changed was I added a export variable called long range, so you can set that to true for this enemy, and if it is true, then we're gonna go to our entity state, and if it is true, if we can attack, which we set in on attack to reset it, then we're going to set can attack to false so that it doesn't fire multiple beams at once. We're also going to call main.onAttack to actually fire the beam, and we're going to reset our entity state to chase so that we can double check that we're still attacking, and then we return. Okay, so yeah, that's it. And again, this script and the navigation agent 3D script and other ones for like close melee enemies. They're in the previous video, and there's a patrol point one, like an idle kind of feature, if you want to check those out. Anyways, that should be it. I'm just gonna double check. Yeah. Oh, actually, I forgot. Beam pivot has its own script, and we have two variables. One of them is a reference to the root node, and the other is just the reference point, which is this node. And essentially, what this entire script does is it adds a delay to the look at method. So if you don't include this last line and you just use the look at method on the beam pivot, right? The beam will always be pointing at the player, and it will be impossible to dodge the beam, which would not be fair for the player because you'd instantly die. And then we're also gonna set rotation equal to lerp rotation reference point dot rotation, and then the weight is going to be 0.1, so it'll add like a little delay, so it will trail behind the player. And there's also one thing I forgot to mention. Yeah, so when damaging the player, you want to multiply the damage times delta, because that way, like, you don't take 5 million damage if you're standing in the beam for like a second. And another way to visualize that is, this is called every frame, right? Or yeah, I think so, every frame. And if the raycast is colliding for like 2 frames, let's say, you'll do 10 damage. If the damage is set to 5 in 2 frames, that's like less than a second, so that would just like wouldn't be fair. And for reference, my damage is set to 10, and we multiply that delta by delta because that's how much time is between the frames, and it gives us a pretty smooth result. You can see that. I'll test it out, and then I'll go over how to add bullets instead of a beam. Okay, it's gonna take a bit because of like terrain in my scene. And also, you'll see there'll be like a glow effect if you're wondering how to add that. I have a video on that too. It'll just take a bit to load. Okay, yeah, so see, this guy is following me, and any second now he'll shoot the beam. It's like trailing behind me. And I'll stand in it so you can see how much damage it does. It'll take a bit because of the cooldown. Yeah, so you see my health bar at the top left. It's going down. So I think that's a pretty fair balance between the damage and time. Of course, you could change this. Yeah, I might actually change this for my own game too. But yeah, if you were wondering, this game is called Afterlights, and it's a little game I'm working on. And that's basically I add a feature and I make a tutorial on it. So yeah, I'm pretty transparent about it. And if you're wondering about any features that you've seen, then let me know down in the comments. Anyways, let's go over quickly how to add the bullets. Alright, so the only change you're going to do is you're going to create a new scene. It's going to be area 3D. And you're going to add a mesh. Let's add a capsule mesh. Reduce this by 4. Oh, that's way too small. Oops. and we're gonna rotate it by 90. That's the wrong one. Okay. So we're gonna save this as bullet. We're gonna go to entities, enemies, enemies, and let's go into here. Press save. Okay, and then we gotta actually add a collision shape for the area 30, and that's gonna be, we're gonna add a collision shape node. Let's just make it a sphere, and it's not gonna exactly be the bullet, but it's gonna be roughly around that shape. If you want a more detailed collision, then you can make it smaller, of course, but I think this is a fair balance. Actually, I'll make it a little smaller. Okay. I'm gonna rename this bullet too. Okay, so let's add a script. Let's call it bullet. It's gonna be function launch. And we're gonna get direction. Okay, so the goal of this, it will be, we'll get the direction this bullet needs to face from the actual enemy. It'll calculate all of that, and then we'll launch the bullet in that direction, which we'll use move towards, or we'll just add a vector onto global transform. Anyways, once I get the script, I'll show you guys. Alright, so I changed a few things with the bullet scene, and all I did is I just cranked up the size, so I just scaled it by 5. I changed the root node to a character body, then I added the area 30 and the collision layers. I set them to 3 and 2 because 3 is my enemy and 2 is my player. And for the actual root node, I changed the mask to 2, and I turned off the layer for the bullet because I don't know, I just felt like it was kind of right like that. And yeah, you can choose whatever layers and masks you want, but yeah, everything else is pretty much the same, except I added another timer, and this is going to control when the bullet should be deleted. So in the script, it's fairly simple. You have a export speed variable, which I set to 60, and it's fairly slow at 60, so if you want to make an actual bullet, definitely crank that up. Then we have 2 variables that are undefined, and they'll be set later in this function launch. And the way these bullets work is they get the position of the player when they're shot, right? Because we don't want homing bullets. Okay, so when they're shot, we pass an enemy position, and we set the player position to our autoloads player dot global transform dot origin, and all you gotta do for that is just you have an autoload with a variable called player, and in your main scene you just set the player to the player path in the main scene. Other than that, we just set enemy position equal to our parameter, and we make the bullet look at the player position, just so we don't have a bullet flying at us horizontally. And then we have the function physics process. All this does is if this function is not launched, then nothing else will work, or nothing under this will work. And we set velocity equal to player position minus enemy position dot normalize, so that gets a direction the bullet has to travel, and we multiply it by our speed variable, and then we call move and slide to actually make it move. The area we connect to signal, it's body entered, and if the body is in our player group, which you can set yourself. Um, then we change its health, and then we connect our timer, which is just a one-shot auto start 5-second timer. And when it times out, we delete the node. That way we don't have a bunch of bullets that are rendered in, even though they're 5 million miles away from the player, because the velocity will go on forever. And then in the actual enemy, I just commented all of the beam attack, and I replaced it with this one. So we instance our bullet scene, which is just this. It's a preload of the scene, and also I added another variable in our auto load called project holder, or projectile holder, sorry. And you can set that the same way you do as player. And I was kind of lazy to make a new auto load, so I put it in player manager. Anyways, we add the bullet as a child of projectile holder, and the projectile holder is just a node 3D. Anyways, we set the position of the bullet to the enemy's position. You could obviously change that if you wanted to shoot in front of the enemy, then you could do that. And then we call the launch function on the bullet, pass in our enemy's position. We start a timer. When it times out, then we can attack again, and this will eventually loop. Alright, so let's see it in action. I'm going to run this scene, and then I'll run the other one so you can see everything properly. Alright, so our enemy's over here, and you can see the bullets are flying at us, and it's my last position. They're fairly slow, but yeah, I'll let you see when it hits me. Yeah, I lose health, and you can see in our remote, the bullets are getting deleted, so that is good. We can easily dodge these. Okay, let me crank up the speed a bit. We'll just double it, and let's just make this look a little bit better. I'm gonna copy this. Actually, I'm gonna copy the material. Geometry. Oh wait. Material. We're gonna paste, and yeah, I think that's it. Okay, let's run our actual scene. It's gonna take a bit, but might as well just do the outro now. So if you guys enjoyed this video, then please like, subscribe, and if you have any other tutorial suggestions you'd like to see, then let me know down in the comments. And yeah, okay, so we can see we get these pretty cool projectiles. They have like a glow effect. They're hard to dodge now, and I can dash with this player controller, so it's pretty cool. Yeah, so that's it. Thanks for watching. And again, I have a Discord in the description, and the GitHub link will be most likely posted. And it won't have the full enemy script because that is in the other